Welcome to Data Crunch, where we talk about AI, big data, cloud computing, and data science. Today, we're going to talk about the 3 stages of getting hired, of interviewing yourself as a data scientist. All right, so the first one, and with Dr. Lau here, and we're going to go through this. The first one is normally the HR screen test, the human resource, right? So what should we look out for when it comes to the HR?
So usually, depends on what type of company that you're applying for. But most of the time, let's talk about generally SME or corporates, right? They have a HR personnel that's your very first layer before you enter the company. So they will sort of even if they don't hire a HR, they will usually done by a recruitment agency. Yeah, but they function the same way, which is they look at your resumes and then they screen through your degrees, your results, or your CCA activities, right. And then they will decide whether you can go into the next level of your interview or not.
I think what helps is you need to understand the motivations of the HR or the recruitment agency. I mean, what is their motivations behind doing all this? Now, they're not necessarily looking for the best candidate. They are actually trying to not get fired, right?
Correct.
So they don't get fired by their boss for doing the wrong thing. Yeah. So they want to get the right things done, but that does not necessarily mean that they're hiring the right person.
So that is like, if we put it to an analogy that you and I can easily relate, in audio, it's like you're filtering the noise.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You're not necessarily picking up the good noise part, but you are trying to filtering out the noise that causes unpleasant to your ears. And also, if we talk about something like Facebook, like if you try to join some groups and then they will ask you some questions. This question is to filter out those people that they're not sincerely, or some people they're just trying to randomly send resumes to every single job that they can find in the market. So that's the number one thing that they look for. Yeah, and yeah, Ruben is right. HR personnel usually they are not technically savvy. So if your resume does not look professional to them, or you try to put too much of the technical details there, that will actually turn them off because they don't understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, because they're trying to save their own life as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To not get fired or to not get degraded. They want to get promoted. Okay, so when it comes to the second thing, so after the HR, we normally come into a technical interview where you have to display your technical knowledge and progress. So what normally happens on this stage?
So once again, depending on the size of the company that you're working at, so if you apply for much larger companies, you usually will go through a couple of rounds of technical interview. So there are different people, usually your seniors in the same department or cross department, they will come and interview you. So there will be a technical interview to test you on your technical depth of technical knowledge.
So what would they normally ask? Would they normally ask like, how would you problem solve if they give you a problem?
Yes. So usually that will be on the next stage, which is the coding part. Okay. The coding part, but we'll talk about it later. But usually during the technical interview part, they'll ask you, for example, in comp science or data science, they'll ask you things like, do you know what is a big O notations, or how to balance a binary tree, for example, very entry level questions. Or otherwise, they'll ask you something more functional. For example, they'll ask things like, let's say in data science, right? If you're working in the transport industry, they'll say, if I want to go from PJ to KL, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, what's the best way to estimate the fare? Okay. Yeah, so it doesn't mean that you have to write codes, you have to write Python scripts, R script, or SQL script at this stage yet, but you do need to show them, or in a way impress them.
You have a solution towards that, or what's the best way you come?
Correct, yeah. And if you're trying to get into companies, like, you can Google this also, like those interview questions at Microsoft, Google, they'll ask you more. I wouldn't say it's not so much like IQ question, but lateral thinking question. So I give you an example, Okay. If you have 2 dice, you have 2 dice, 6 faces each, right? How are you going to make it into a way that you can display the dates? How you can use it as a calendar to display? So in other words, how do you display from 0 to 1 to 31 using 2 dice? So that one of the example. Or another type of question that Microsoft and Google always ask is like, so you are climbing a mountain from the what do you call it, from the bottom to the peak, right? Okay, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Okay, so next day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. you climb down the mountain. So is there a point at what point would you cross would you meet? Is it possible, or you will never meet? So something like that.
So how would someone train themselves to prepare for this kind of questions?
So usually in technical interviews, right, although in Malaysia most of the time they wouldn't ask trick questions like this, lucky, yeah, because we're still in talent shortage, so they rather try you on other stuff. But in order to prepare yourself, I think you need to read broadly. Yeah, a lot of people think like, when you apply for a job, data science job, you really need to be very good at the skills you're at. Like, okay, if you apply as a machine learning engineer, you need to be very familiar with all those algorithms. But that is like a prerequisite. Like a chef, you must know how to cook. But they also look at whether you have a broader interest. Like, do you read other stuff, and your thought process, and like you always say, your problem-solving skills. Yeah, how do you handle problems, and then how do you solve it creatively?
Right, so to be a data scientist means you need to be able to problem solve, and that's very important, so you have to read broadly. Okay, coming down to the third one, right? So normally after that, we come down to the coding challenge, where they probably ask you to do a bit of coding to see your progress in coding and technology.
Correct, so that will be usually your, it can be your immediate supervisors, or someone that you report to, or your someone that you work very closely with. So they will come and test you on your technical challenge. Now, as a data scientist, you will get tests on various things, and depending on the culture of the companies and what type of data scientist that they need. So if they need somebody who is very analytical. So my usual habits, right, when a company is hiring data scientists, I would just say, give them a coding challenge and ask them to use Jupyter Notebook, and then send you back the code. Then you know how they think, and then how they code. And from your coding practice also, we can know that whether you are a sleazy person, lazy to comment, or you try to use different shortcuts, etc. So there's a lot of things, a lot of tiny nitty-gritty things that we can tell from the way that you code.
Personality in the code.
Exactly. So the way that you write code is like, last time there's a lot of people, they judge your personality by looking at your writings, your handwritings, right? That is very, very similar as well.
Right. So based on the topic, right? What kind of language, or what kind of programming language that they normally ask you to code?
Okay, now people might be guessing that I'm talking either Python or R, but usually that's not the case. Okay, unless the company has a strong culture of using one of the programming language, but usually they're both open source. You don't have to pay, so there's no such thing. But unless they do purchase some sort of license like SAS, or then you have to be familiar with that particular language. But on top of that, a lot of companies actually look at other stuff like SQL, for example. SQL. How do you write queries? Now, SQL is a very important skill for data scientists and also full stack developers. Okay, sidetrack a little bit. A lot of websites that you visit, right? We always complain like, wow, why this website is so slow. A lot of time it's not because of the server is slow, or not because of the Unify is slow, but it's because the query is slow, and because they did not design the database properly.
Efficient.
To be efficient, correct? Yeah. So there's a lot of ways to write good, efficient queries. And if we are talking about cloud technologies, so some of the companies, they do have GCP, Google Cloud, AWS, like we do use a lot of AWS, right? And some of the Malaysian companies, enterprises, they do use Azure. So in cloud, right, every single query that you write actually costs them money. Yeah, some queries, some cheap queries can cost you about 10, 20 cents of US dollar. And if you do not write the queries properly, and you
cost
do not,
them a lot.
Yeah, if you do not use join correctly, right, it's going to cost you a lot. It can go up to $4, $5 just to write a simple query to retrieve some aggregated results.
So SQL.
Yeah, right. And also another thing I would like to highlight is that Git. Yeah, so something like GitHub, Bitbucket. So those are the skills which is code versioning, because as time goes by, you are not working alone. You are usually working in a team environment. So you do need to collaborate with other people. And so when you collaborate with other people, you do need to have tools, and the tools that we usually use are Git. And Git does two things, not only for collaborations, but also for code versioning as well.
All right, totally understand that now. So I hope that helped you so far. We're going to go for a short break and come back with more to help you nail that data scientist interview.
Ayo, so many cards.
And what are you doing?
Hey, Ruben, you remember this guy, Anthony?
Oh, CEO of Food Market Hub.
Yeah, I'm arranging the name cards that I've collected during the last conference. Oh, so many cards here, I don't even know how to organize them.
How many conferences do you go in a year?
On average, 2 to 3 per month, I would say.
Would it be good if you can collect all the name cards from after the conference?
Of course, but is there a service like this?
Introducing DM Summit, a data science and marketing summit, a virtual one, where you can get all the name cards from the speakers and participants even after the summit.
Alright, chuck away all the name cards now. Get your all access pass from dsmsummit.com and we'll see you at the summit.
We'll see you there. Welcome back. Now, one thing about going for an interview is to understand the company's culture, and sometimes the company would also want to understand your culture and understand your expectations. So you want to lay the expectation between you and also the company that you're trying to get hired for, right? So there's normally two distinctions between companies, startups, and also corporates, right? So I think a lot of our viewers would go for a startup, but I can't say that. Some would go for a startup, some would go for a corporate. But based on that, what's important when it comes to the culture and also the expectations from the company to yourself?
Yeah. So let's talk about your own expectation first, right? We've covered the 3 different stages. Now, when you try to get a job, a data science job, now data science is something that is very new. In Malaysia, I wouldn't say is infancy, but it's about 2-3 years old kind of thing. So a lot of companies, like we talked about earlier, HR supervisor themselves, and some of our clients that we have met before, you know that they just set up a data analytics team and hire their first data scientist in the past 3 months. So everyone is trying to figure out what is going on and what is going to happen. And when it comes to expectation, so corporate, usually when you apply a job in a corporate, your expectation is like compensation, benefits, annual leaves, EPF, SOCSO, etc. So that part I think is relatively easier. But when it comes to joining a startup, it's totally different. Now, startup companies, we usually carry a mission, right? Yeah. We want to be disruptive, okay? Hopefully not disturbing. We want to disrupt something, and in order to disrupt, whether it's the status quo or in order to disrupt the existing market, you need to do something differently. So when you join the company as a data scientist, you need to be able to buy into the company's direction and the CEO's vision. So if the CEO vision and the things that they are doing is not something that you bought into, I think that is not a culture fit. Yeah, and when you don't have a culture fit, is a bad thing for yourself and also a bad thing for the growth of the company.
It's gonna be like working hell,
Yeah, it's gonna be like working hell. And also, for some people, they might want to join a startup, but you do need to understand startup. I'm not going to talk about the 996 or 966 kind of working culture, but you really need to understand is that you do need to be in fighting mode all the time, I would say, right? Okay, not just firefighting, but you always be ready because things change very fast.
Yeah. Direction change, pivoting here and there.
Correct.
Probably not everybody is built for the startup kind of environment, maybe. Some people will go for a corporate style.
Yeah. And as we're speaking here, right, we are in the environment of mostly Asian and Southeast Asian, so we have that kind of shyness in our DNA. So if you can't really work after 6 because of your family commitments, because you have babies, you have parents to take care. That's absolutely fine. But how do you align this expectation with your CEOs and your other colleagues and teammates? That's something that you really need to take into consideration. So apart from joining a startup as one of your career options.
So when interviewing, I think culture and also expectations have to be laid out. You need to know the company culture, and the company needs to know your culture as well. Yeah. There has to be an alignment there.
Yeah, and we have done a lot of hiring also, right? The one thing that's even now I'm stammering already. The one thing that's hardest to talk about is actually the salary. Yeah, right. Yeah. The hardest thing to write is your expected salary. And Ruben actually realized that whenever I'm hiring, I actually take that as the first thing that I ask, right? Because we do have our budget when it comes to that sort of position, that sort of seniority that we want to hire. And you also have, I mean, you as in the job seekers, they do have their own salary expectations, their life commitments, you know. Yeah, so everybody's situation is different. So I think Ruben summarized it very well. Your culture and also the expectations needs to be aligned.
So that's the two things. Now the one, I'm looking for a secret hack, right? And I think we tell this to a lot of our students, right? Yes. But what's that secret hack that would get you in front of the crowd, in front of the queue, to get into a data science interview, to ace an interview?
I thought this is going to be a separate episode by itself, but we usually only break this one in our class. Okay, so we're going to tell you now. The easier way, right, relatively easier way to get a data science job is actually to build a very good portfolio. You don't need to be very impressive, as in you don't need to have a wide number of projects, but you do need to have a couple of projects that you have done it very well. So once again, pick a business question, pick a data set, articulate the problem, right? And then tell people that why is this problem important and interesting to you. Okay, it doesn't need to be interesting to everybody. You are not trying to save the world just by writing one data science code. But this portfolio is going to show that how much you care about the problem and how much you are able to use your knowledge to apply it on that particular problem. So once you have a portfolio, and in fact, a lot of our community members, not necessarily our students, but whoever they have been to my webinars, they listen to this, they get job offers from LinkedIn actually, right? So people will send them inbox messages, headhunters will look at them, their past projects and their portfolios.
Because of a portfolio, right?
Yes.
And when it comes to portfolio, is it better to always choose like a business case kind of portfolio, or it can be something general like the Titanic case study?
Try not to use Titanic and the Iris, the flower data set, because that thing has been overused many times. So people kind of like, they probably won't turn off, but tune off a little bit, unless you have, same thing, right? Unless you have a very unique and special perspective. For example, one of our students, they actually analyzed the salutation of the Titanic passengers, like Reverend, Mr., Mrs., to judge by their the survival rate based on that salutation. Okay, because that actually implies your social status. For example, your Dato Sri and Tan Sri and Mr. It actually tell some stories behind it, right? So that's one thing to look at it. Otherwise, I would say, from the perspective of looking for a job, right? Think about something that your potential employer will be interested. Say if you are going to enter a fintech industry, okay, analyzing the type of flowers and leaves probably will not get his
attention. Right?
It's about, in digital marketing, we talk about getting people attention and retaining people attention. Now, so in order to do that, you probably do something like analyzing the stock price for the past 10 years and show how you apply some simple time series analysis to predict the stock price. It's something that is definitely will get his attention.
So attention is also the name of the game, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I hope those tips helped you in a way to ace your next interview, your next data science interview. I think that's about it for this episode. So remember to follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our group on Facebook, the Lead Knowledge Circle, and we also have a Spotify channel.
And also iTunes.
iTunes as well.
Yeah,
Cerebro, right? Cerebro by Lead. Search it up on Spotify. You'll be able to find our podcast. Every week we'll be dropping out new content there. So do follow us there. And if you have any questions about this episode, let us know in the comment section below, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks again for watching.